chaos and frightening stuff that was going around at the beginning of 2012. Anybody remember all that? It was supposed to be the end of the world. All the calendars was ending at that particular time. I kind of thought it was false because I already had the 2012 calendar. Barnes & Noble sold it. So I knew that this was false, but still there was a lot of hype around that, and it isn't necessarily the end of time, but it could be the end of human experience time the way we know it. So it is a time of great change. And if you look into the last 2 years, it's been 2 years, I cannot believe this. It's been 2 years. Think about it. Any change in your life? Little change? Slight change? My entire life changed. I don't know about you guys. Just about everything in my life changed, shifted. So I had to develop a whole new way of thinking, of functioning in this place called Earth that we're all on together. We are all going through many different shifts, and it really is a shift in consciousness. I believe that we have either consciously or subconsciously or by default been prepared. We have been. That's something within me. Thank you for that song. That's something within me has known that there's a different way, new ways of doing things. Why do you think that so many structures and systems have seemed to fallen apart or failed? It could have been that they fell apart in order to put them back together again, back to a different way of doing things, a different consciousness. Remember, before we get to true clarity, sometimes there's a lot of chaos in our lives. And then in the group consciousness, so in systems. We know that Einstein was a mathematical genius, and he was also just plain brilliant. And he said the most significant words. And I know you've all heard them. The significant problems that we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. And he was correct. Humankind is in the midst, right here, right now, of an evolutionary shift up. We're going to call it up. Things are breaking down so they can be rebuilt from a new place of thinking. A new place in consciousness, and that's our awareness. So a new place in consciousness. And we are the people, right here in this room, we are the people to bring that change about. We are the people that are shifting and changing and making conscious choices. And we're bringing a new level of consciousness to the table. Breakdown through breakthrough. That's how we do it. Breakdown through breakthrough. So things break down and we break through. We keep on keeping on. We have spent the last 3 Sundays in January looking at 4 of the 5 tenets of enlightened evolution. And so according to the book that we're using, Andrew Cohen, Evolutionary Enlightenment, these are the 4 tenets we've covered so far. Clarity of intention to evolve, which is a strong, clear intention of our evolution. And if you were here the last week in December, we did a community visioning for our lives in 2014. So clarity of intention, set a clear intention. The second tenet was power of volition, which means choice, taking 100% responsibility for those choices we make in life. No one else is going to take that responsibility for you. Hello, found that out. Really, we need to do it, or we're going to have to do it ourselves. We don't need to. It was always going to fall back on us. Conscious choosing. This one of my favorites. Look at everything and avoid nothing. And that really is the power of responsibility in our lives. So look at everything and avoid nothing. And then the 4th one, the process perspective. So this one's a little different. This is where we see our personal lives and experiences from a perspective of a higher cosmic self. This is when our divine self, our authentic self, the silent, if you've heard, witness, is giving us a whole different perspective of our humanness and how we are in the world. So we have one final tenet, which according to Cohen, is not a standalone tenet. In fact, it's a result. It's a result of the previous four when they've been embodied, when they have been lived. And he suggests that if you wholeheartedly pursue your own clarity of intention to evolve, and if you take unconditional responsibility for your power of volition, which is choice, and if you fearlessly face everything and avoid nothing, and if you cultivate a process perception in earnest, if you do these things in earnest, then you will become aware of an arising sense of cosmic conscience. This is what he says, which Cohen describes as a care and concern for the vast evolutionary process of all humankind. And he writes, we're not in this alone. Well, each one, and the multiplicity is what I'm going to be talking about, perfect reading. Of the multiplicity, we are part of the oneness. We've been created out of this one life. So when we shift and change, all of life shifts and change. Can't avoid it. So Cohen writes, you will recognize your own spiritual development. Your liberation from ego is absolutely essential for the evolution of humanity. That is why your motive becomes, I want to be free not only for my own sake, but for the sake of the whole. That is the awakening of the cosmic conscience. And I love these words of Cohen, but I still think that they could go a little deeper. Even though they are profound and they are beautiful, I don't think that they are complete. I believe that something absolutely critical is missing in that. And when we awaken to cosmic conscience, I don't want to use his words. When we awaken to what we in religious science call this cosmic conscience, it really is also Christ consciousness, which Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, talks about. So cosmic conscience is the same as Christ consciousness. It's a mouthful. So not only do we awaken to the idea that we play a significant role in the whole of humanity, but we awaken to the idea that we are part of whole of creation. So all of creation, we are part of the whole. There is a spiritual dimension to this wholeness that cannot be left out. We can't leave the spiritual part of our wholeness out. And how many people function on this earth plane, in this spiritual realm, in this earth plane realm, without really tapping into the spirituality, the deep spirit within? That's it. That's the key. That is it. All the different programs that point in different ways of self-help will always say a higher power, a higher power. What is that higher power? It's your relationship to a power that has created all that is, was, and ever shall be. So this, what we call Christ consciousness, Christ being a title, which means anointed one, we are each and every one here an anointed one. Each one of us. We are sons and daughters of the Most High. We are. Do we accept that? See? When we accept that, when we deepen our faith into that, that's when we start to really shift. It is a deep and abiding awareness of our connection to the whole, to the one, not just to the whole of humanity. We are connected, yes, to the whole of humanity, but we are connected to something that is so much, much, much bigger than that. And Ernest Holmes writes in his Science of Mind, there is a place in our mentality, in the heights of our greatest realization, where we throw ourselves with complete abandonment into the very center of the universe. Just hear these words. Beautiful. There is a point in the supreme moment of realization when we merge with the universe, but not to the loss, he writes, of our individuality, where a sense of oneness of all life so enters our being that there is no sense of otherness. We can do this only by dwelling and meditating upon the immensity of life and the fact that as vast, as immense, as limitless as it is, the whole of it is brought to the point in our own consciousness. All of that, the limitless nature of the divine. This is the one mind that we use, we access when we consciously align with it. When we know there is a power for good, and that power created me, and that power lives within me, that's when significant, wonderful, amazing changes take place. The way of the cosmic conscience, or Christ consciousness, is the way we realize our true and profound relationship to the universal whole, to God. It is not only the way in which we realize the whole, or the role that we play in the whole, but the complete realization that we are part of something so much grander, so much more, and that we cannot die spiritually. We cannot spiritually die. Physically, yes. These physical forms, unless you're ascended and you take it with you, I don't think I'm there yet. But we don't die. That spiritual self is forever. It's eternal. It's eternal. And that's part of the allness of the divine energy that is God. And so this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, as they say, where we think everyone else is the whole, but not us. Where we think everyone else walks around feeling good all the time. They really got it. They really know who they are, but we don't. This is what we're thinking in our minds sometimes. This is a pervasive and potentially deadly way of being and thinking. I say deadly because I believe, okay then.
As soon as you said it.
I'm telling you, it comes from on high. I don't do the sound effects. I say deadly because I believe it's going to take our understanding, our true, deep understanding about who and whose we are in order for this new consciousness to emerge. And if the new consciousness does not emerge, then humanity, as we know it, may be in real trouble. I, being the eternal optimist, believe that a major shift in consciousness is absolutely taking place. It's occurring already in many of our lives. And remember, we're part of the whole. So if it's occurring in and through and as us, it's occurring, then we are affecting the whole of humanity. The shifts in consciousness, awareness, it affects all of us. We are not isolated beings. That's the thing we're moving out of, that dualistic thinking. We are moving into the religious science, new thought, oneness thinking. Oneness, where we're part of something so great, so amazing. And quantum physics is already proving, if one star moves or shifts or changes, stars billions of miles away all react to that. There is a field that we are in. We are not these human bodies walking around all by ourselves that we kind of been programmed to think. We're part of a universal wholeness. And I love the line by Richard Bach where he says, argue for your limitations and they are yours. They are not yours in truth, in your true reality, your divine self, but they will show up in your human experiences. So I've said before, now is the time, and we are the people, to bring forth this evolution that's taking place, to bring it forth. Each one of us, as we raise our vibration, our frequency of being, because we're energy beings, we're affecting the whole of humanity, and more than that, we're affecting all that is. All that is. So we can only be the people if we put on the cloak of Christ, the anointed one, remember? So Christ consciousness, or our true light being selves. We're light beings. That's a true thing. So I have a story. There is a story of a seeker who heard there was a council of evolved masters high atop a mountain in a faraway land. He so desired to learn at the feet of these evolved masters that he sold everything that he owned and headed out on this really long, long journey to reach them. It was a journey filled with hardship, with loss, with pain, and it took years and years to get there. As the years passed, he accumulated a small band of followers. People were traveling with him. They wanted to also visit. Finally, they reached the precipice. Finally, they reached the location of these esteemed, evolved masters. So they walked in, and they saw the robed and hooded masters seated around a table, and their hearts leaped for joy after all these years. Finally, after an arduous journey, they had finally arrived. They rushed to the table, only to find the robes empty. They were shocked. They were dismayed, and they were disheartened. But then they came to a realization that they were to put on the robes, because they were the masters they had been looking for. That's where that story ends, but I think that there's more to it than that. I think the seeker and his friends, who are now evolved masters, should get up from that table, from the isolation, and walk out into the world. The story does not end with them staying holed up again. The story ends with them coming into the world and sharing their enlightenment. And you today, right now, in this room, are evolved masters. That's what I am declaring. Each, O ye of little faith, I am declaring that you are. Have faith in yourself, in that truth of who you are. You are so much more than you could ever really realize, could ever know. You can do so much more than you know that you can do. Have faith. It's the faith. Ernest Holmes writes in Science of Mind, as the human gives way to the divine in all people. Now he doesn't say just some people. He says all people. They become the Christ. So as the human gives way to the divine in all people, we become evolved. Enlightened evolution, putting on the cloak of Christ consciousness, is about realizing who we are. Really realizing who we are. We talk about it. Are we doing that work of really connecting with that? It is about deepening into our being. And it is about evolving into our becoming. Because we're always becoming more and more and more. We don't reach a point and we stop. We're always becoming. So how we show up in the world and to others, that's how we are becoming more. But you gotta have it to give it away. So the more you hold that love and that peace in your heart, then you can give it away. Take a breath, breathe that in. So at the place of being, there is a stillness, a peace, a quiet, soft sense of oneness. The experience of egoless unity, of oneness, has always been one of the highest qualities or spiritual ideas that we have reached out for. But that's it, reaching out for. So when we're in meditation, we're reaching inward. That's where it lies. It's not out there. Remember, we're the evolved masters. We are the robed ones. I'm here as a reflection of you in my robe, just to show you that. But it's within us. So how would it be then if we stepped, if we're in meditation and we reach this really peaceful, beautiful way of being, how would it be then if we stepped out into the world with that oneness, that sense of peace, into the multiplicity of what looks like and usually feels like conflict and chaos, of differences, and we become, let's just say now, very Christ-like. So we do our spiritual practice, right? We do meditate, we do our prayer work, Then we go out into interaction with others, and it doesn't feel very Christ-conscious-like. But think what our world would be like. Just think. If many individuals were able to remain in this state of peace, this consciousness of absolute unity, while creatively engaging in the world of multiplicity. Imagine, if you could, the same experience that you have when you're in meditation of oneness. And if you don't meditate, I would highly recommend it. It's the way that spirit moves and talks and expresses through you. It's the way. But just think about it. We take that out into the world and we're consciously aware of it. And passionately engage with other people in this life process. It would be a really evolved world, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So, my friends, there's a lot at stake here. There really is. It's time for us to deepen into our being and to evolve into our becoming. I love that. The time is right. This is the time, right here, right now. The situation is ripe for it. It's ripe for it. It's waiting for us to show up and say, yes, life. And this is no longer just about ourselves. This is more than just a personal matter. This is about the collective consciousness. This is about this has a universal consequence. So right now I would invite you to you are still and you are quiet. But just, if you'd like to close your eyes, and we'll just do a quick journey within. So let us take another journey into consciousness. This is a journey of being and becoming. And so put yourself in the role of the seeker in the story I shared earlier. And you have just reached the top of the mountain. You have walked into the room of the enlightened masters and have found the robes to be empty. You stand there for a moment, perplexed, upset even, at the arduous journey you have taken for nothing, so it seems. And then you realize that the journey has, in fact, honed you and given you the insights and ability to put on the robe yourself. So in your mind's eye now, put it on. Put the robe on. And in this robe, become aware of what you are aware of about your true nature, that divine self within you. This is a moment of supreme realization. And with this realization, you rise from the table, leave the peace and quiet of the sacred space, and come out into the world. See your world with fresh eyes today. See everyone from the deepest I am space within you. See the divine in you, greeting and meeting the divine in others. Know that the I am presence, the supreme presence, walks as you, walks around you. Realize, in fact, that you are walking in the land of I am, the great I am, and when you do, you will move yourself and humankind forward on that upward spiral of evolution. I know this to be true, and I claim it right here and right now, and so it is.
So it is.